Alright, so this is a quick tutorial on how to find highly shorted stocks that could undergo a short squeeze. A lot of people like to just use this Fintel list, look at these things and use that as their reason to buy a stock and see if it undergoes a short squeeze. My reasoning is quite different, and I'm almost never actually looking at these top 10 stocks. A lot of the time, once they get to the top 10, they become good selling opportunities. So for that reason, I look into short squeeze stocks such as TRKA, GMVD, doing a different strategy. I click this shorts page on Ortex, and you can start filtering and sorting between a bunch of different options, a bunch of different stocks to see what has good potential. So we'll start with this number of analysts. I usually just take that down to 0 because it's pretty irrelevant. I mean, especially when talking about a short squeeze. GMVD doesn't have any analyst recommendations, or I don't believe they do. But I just take that one down. I like to put this cost to borrow up. If you can put the cost to borrow to a minimum of 18.8, get it as close to 20 as possible. That will show you stocks that already are in a position where shorts might want to consider covering. I mean, 20%, that's a lot to be paying in a single year for a stock to stay short, especially considering like the average return on the S&P 500 is like 7% or so. If one of these stocks just stays flat, I mean, it's not a good idea to be in your short position. So cost to borrow, 20%. I like to have days to cover. Let's put it up to like 3. So that's something else we like to see. On loan utilization, you can keep that at 75%, maybe even put it up a little bit higher. Free float on loan, we'll take that down. Estimated short interest, honestly, that doesn't always matter. Then you can sort it right here by market cap, right? And that's the top market cap. So GameStop is on this list. It has the highest market cap by far. And then you sort it the other way, it shows the lowest market cap. So sometimes you want the market cap to be a little bit higher because, I mean, we are literally talking, I mean, $1 million stocks. That's not it. It looks like this minimum filter is a little screwed up. So right now we're not going to be able to do that, but we can just scroll down. So a stock that I've been looking out for news is LogicMark. I mean, I've seen that one a few times. Labs, that one might be interesting today. It looks like it's a biotech company. Biotech's doing well. We can check that out real quick. Boom. Okay, it's a super low volume. All right, it's not moving. All right, so because of that, we'll move on to the next one. And it's just kind of this process of moving on and just looking at these stocks down the list. Lowest market cap is usually the best because, well, something has a lower price, it can move more, right? If something is cheaper, it can move up a little bit more than something that is more expensive with less amounts of money. So that's why I'll sort it this way. But then you'll just continue going down the list until you see something interesting. I like looking at cost to borrow. Reliance, that one's obviously interesting right there. However, Reliance has had multiple squeezes in the past. I like to look at stocks that have not had squeezes in the past because, again, that's like the element of surprise. A lot of the time, something that's sliding under the radar, that's the one that market makers, shorts actually allow to actually go up, right? Because no one is talking about it. But it doesn't mean it's a bad opportunity. We'll just keep going down. This is a retailing stock. So MOGU, we'll just look at it. So we'll just type it into Ortex, MOGU. Boom. We'll take a look. It looks like it does have news. It says it is China-backed JS Designs. Okay, financing. All right. Is this... So if it's a Chinese stock, that can be a little suspicious sometimes. But let's check to see the risk of being diluted. So MOGU. And pay attention to not necessarily what I am doing. or this exact stock, but pay attention pay attention to what I am doing, but don't pay attention to the stock. It's the same strategy, the same researching, but you can just apply it to multiple different stocks. This one doesn't look it looks interesting. Let's look at it's a foreign issuer. Okay, we'll skip to the next one. Because it doesn't have too much information there. Let's see. Let's go to cost to borrow again. I like looking at the cost to borrow. AVCT, this one has options, but it's also a decent setup. I can look at the chart here. You can also, if something has options, always look at the institutional call option flow. Those typically have some of the most accurate statements for so they have some of the most accurate sentiment. There's about to be bullish divergence here in AVCT. Let's check the options on that one. So it has a nice little chart. So since this has options, I guess we'll show you guys what to do if there is options. So options seem to be starting at 0.5 right there for the price. Going out here August, it's only about 0.15. Applied volatilities at 200%. So what you can look at here is historical implied volatility. So let's look at that. Options Industry Council right there. And then we'll type in AVCT. Now AVCT, you can see back here from the $1 level to the $3 level, there's a lot of volume. So this is going to be a big supply zone. Just based off of that volume. So once you start getting above $1 on AVCT, it'll be a lot harder to get above $1, which would cap the gains right there at about 200%. So that's something I'll also look at. I'll look at technical analysis supply zones, right? If there has been a recent squeeze in the past, that means there's probably more people holding the bag, right, who want to get out of it, especially if on-balance volume stays high. I'm assuming that it does here. We can check that as well, right? Real quick. On balance volume. I'm assuming it stayed pretty high. Yep. So there's a lot of bag holders in this play. That could be a bad thing, right? That could be, in fact, a bad thing. So let's move back into this. Historical implied volatility. You want to make sure on a historical level that it is low. So we'll click the volatility chart. Boom, boom, boom. It's not as high as it was in December when it obviously made that move, but it's also been pretty flat there. It's not like you're really catching a huge dip. Perhaps if it goes under 100% implied volatility, this might be because these options are being priced out of the money for the most part. That could be that's probably why the implied volatility is high. So it's not super relevant with this one just because it's chilling out below the lowest strike price anyways. But it's still a decent setup, so we could even enter into this one and see what happens here around 32 cents, right? Still a decent setup. I mean, it's super cheap, good short interest. We can go back into Ortex, see if there's anything we can look at in terms of news. Reports acquisition by director. All right, perfect. So a director acquired some stock. So I will check to see what happened there. We'll go to FinViz. We can also check. Oh, I typed in FinViz again. We can check any relevant filings, right? To see if there's any information there. We'll see what the director did in just a second. Okay. So this was on May 20th, May 19th. This was at 40 cents. That's a good sign, though. So let's see what that specific news is. We'll look at the filings. I know this is a lot, but this is what you have to do, right? This is what you'll be seeing. This is what I'm doing off stream when I'm researching these plays, right? And it does look like there is insider trading as of 2 days ago right there. And it does look like 532,000 shares were acquired. And it doesn't look like it must have been because they didn't pay any money for it. So it must have been part of their contract. They must have been like offered that as compensation. And it's not showing up here on FinViz. But just the fact that, they bought shares at 40 cents, it's trading below that right now. I mean, that's a decent sign. I mean, if those directors are ever going to make their money back, you're going to make what, almost a 30-40% gain. Technicals again look pretty good. I'd want to see some more news that is relevant to right now. Overall, right? That's what I was seeing with TRKA, just tons of bullish news. But it's still not bad in terms of this technical setup. Days to cover is at a much higher level than it even was way back here when it squeezed in December. We'll look at the 2 weeks. Yeah, that's pretty good as well. So there could be an opportunity here in AVCT. Let's see utilization. It's been peaked out for a while now. Cost to borrow, it's been pretty high for a while now. I mean, there's no telling when this could move, but it does seem like when it does have a catalyst, it should move pretty good, right? So if you wanted to buy shares, you could. It doesn't mean it's gonna start making money right now. It has to. I believe that it probably needs some type of bullish catalyst, right? I like to further look at Fintel a lot of the times because Fintel just has a good layout for other information, such as like these call options right here. You can see institutions didn't buy call options since March. You can go back to the chart and see what happened there. Then you go into the short interest here. We'll scroll down. This is where I like to look at how the borrow rate has changed over time, right? It's been coming up in the recent 2 weeks. The short exempt volume, this is what basically led me to get into GMVD, right? Because the short exempt volume was just absurdly high. It's not too high right there. Then also good visual on failure to delivers as well. Nothing too crazy right there. So we did all that research. It's time to move on to the next one, right? It's a good setup, but overall, we don't know if it's perfect. I didn't check the dilution tracker here yet. Looks like they do have some warrants, some convertible notes, convertible preferred for $1 per share right there, $1 per share. That's a lot of shares at $1 per share. It really doesn't seem like this stock can get above $1 per share. That's also that big supply zone from back here, right, around $1 per share on AVCT. Let's see. No, that was back in December. Starts around above $1 per share. I mean, there's an opportunity, but I don't see a complete crazy multi-bagging opportunity. So we move on to the next one. I know Pola Power, that's actually up there on that Fintel list. Yeah, it's number 11 right there. Pola Power. Take a look at the stock chart. It's been coming down. That's a pretty ugly chart. On balance volume is sticking up there. Let's see the hourly on balance volume. That's been coming down. Probably going to avoid that as well. You can obviously check to see if they have any bullish news coming out, but you just keep going down the line of these stocks. You can have the exact same filters that I have, right? Pay attention to the actual numbers. Don't just search up every single stock. Make sure you look at it. There's something juicy about it, right? Right here, PSIX, that has 35 days to cover. I mean, that looks pretty juicy, right? And it doesn't even say the short interest of free float right there. 2% of free float on loan. Yeah, interesting, right? Interesting. We'll scroll down. We'll see other ones you guys could potentially research here. This one has 10 days to cover, 31% cost to borrow. High percentage of shares on loan right now. 100% utilization. So VQS, we'll take a look at it, all right? I'll do this one as well. We're making this video way longer than anticipated, but hopefully it's helpful. So, VQS. No data available right here. It looks like it traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's now on NASDAQ as VQS. Let's see. When did it come on the market? A while ago. Let's see. Monthly chart. IPO. Okay, yeah. long time ago. Long time ago. So we'll look at the daily chart. It had an EMA crossover. It actually had a nice move recently. And it's holding decently strong. So interesting because you're buying a dip on something that is holding pretty strong. And it's shown multiple bullish signals in terms of like these crossovers. So it could keep going, obviously. We'll check the news on it. Voting results, that's the recent news from their meeting of shareholders. We can dive into that a bit more. We'll see if they have options traded on them. They do have options traded on them. All right, implied volatility is decently high there. You can always go back to this options calculator. However, usually, I've been avoiding stocks with options for the most part. Then we go back here, VQS. We check, is there a big risk? Historically, yes. Right now they have warrants at 5. They've got some on their shelf. Not too much risk overall there. Not too much. And then obviously just go into that short data. Repeat the process, right? Repeat the process. And yeah, you just keep looking until there's some interesting stuff. Hey, we got Troika Media Group right here, all right? 84% cost to borrow, 3.59 days to cover. That's a good one. Look into that one, right? And yeah, you just keep going through, keep rinse and repeating that process. If it doesn't have options, that's always a bonus, right? If it does have options, there's a few more steps that you need to take, right? Including going to this historical implied volatility, checking the chart, maybe looking at the unusual whales flow, the option flow on Fintel, which shows the institutional options. So a few more steps are definitely involved when there's options. And yeah, you just keep scrolling through. It's a lot. It's a lot of companies that you have to look at before you can necessarily find a good one. And then always remember, if it doesn't have options, you can check those short exempts as well, which is on the short interest page of Fintel. Okay, I'm gonna end it here. Hope this helps.